Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where in the world you are at the moment. Welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity in Diversity with Wanny Angerer in Moving Cultures. Today, our guest, number 66 of the series, is a dear friend of mine, very close to my heart, Reshma Aziz Khan. How are you, Reshma?
I am good, and I'm so happy to see you again, Wani. It's such a pleasure to be here.
The same. It's always a great experience to talk to you and to see you and exchange knowledge and experiences. So, who is Reshma?
Wow, that's such a great question, and there's so many ways I could start, but let me start with whatever flows naturally. Reshma, my name is Reshma. I am Kenyan of Indian origin. My family moved to Kenya centuries ago. Reshma is an internationalist. That's what I call myself, a person who loves to connect different people and cultures and beings and diversities to create beauty, a person who worked for a very long time in development in the nonprofit sector, and who left my full-time job in the middle of the pandemic last year in COVID to become a full-time leadership coach and facilitator for issues around diversity, inclusion, belonging, strategy, and leadership.
Reshma, tell us how your parents and your ancestors play an important role on making you the person you are today.
Thank you. That's a really great question. And actually something I've been discussing a lot in the past few weeks with people around our sources of inherent wisdom. So my parents are both passed on. My father passed away 22 years ago, actually, this past week when I was 13 years old. And my mom passed away just over 10 years ago. But both were very strong, loving personalities. I grew up in a safari family in Kenya. So most of the time I spent out in nature. And if we weren't out on safari or in nature, we were always having guests in our home. I remember from as young as being 8 years old, I remember almost every weekend, my mom was an amazing cook. And my mom would cook up all these dishes because my father would bring all his safari guests from around the world, literally, to our home. So I've met some princes from the Middle East. I remember meeting a circus family from Egypt. I remember meeting an uncle, well, who I call uncle, very close uncle from Italy, and one from Israel. So literally from around the world, that's how I grew up, meeting people around the world. And my parents really instilled that in me, that look beyond the color, look beyond the accent, look beyond the culture. Ultimately, we are all human beings, just in a physical body, but we all share the same spark of divinity.
You mentioned a very important aspect of your upbringing, the safaris. How the wildlife is connected to you in the present.
Wildlife and I and the earth, Mama Gaia, are immensely connected to each other. So I've been writing a lot and speaking a lot about protecting the earth. And ever since I was younger, I've been talking about environmental sustainability and stewardship and protecting the earth and protecting animals. And fun fact, my birthday, 4th October, is actually World Animal Day. So I'm sure that's not coincidental. But I have a deep affinity to wanting to take care of animals. I have 3 dogs and I'm looking around because right now I'm sitting in my living room and they're all sort of sitting around me, but also wildlife particularly. I grew up in a family that treasured wildlife, that even when we went on safari were very respectful to wildlife. And when I first came back to Kenya from university, I went to work up in northern Kenya in Laikipia with some local communities, indigenous communities, who I'm so grateful to for sharing their wisdom with me. And they actually told me, Reshma, we're very convinced that your spirit animal is a leopard, which made so much sense because I remember growing up and being friends who knew me well. I had a room full of leopard and cheetah prints everywhere because I was obsessed with the prints. But there's really something significant about me being connected to nature, to wildlife, to leopards, and even more over the past few years to elephants, just really doing my part to help conserve and protect their environments.
Yes, I know because of my personal experience working with you, how spirituality is a fundamental part of yourself, and how through the years that spirituality has been swinging into different positions. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, so I'm from the Ismaili tradition of Islam, which is a Shia tradition of Islam, and we follow His Highness the Aga Khan, who's our spiritual leader. Uh, and apart from that, over the past few years, so we are a very esoteric faith, a very spiritually guided faith. I also met my husband, who's Buddhist, and I met many others along the path. And more as I grew and I experienced the world, I realized actually we're all on the same path. We're just on different roads towards the same final destination. But also I've realized that the more I connect with my spirit and my inner being and that light, that spark within, the more I'm able to better serve the world. So even as a leadership coach, I realized the more I tune into my own spirituality, I'm a better coach when I'm actually tuned into my divinity and looking past the human in front of me. And so I also grew up in a culture where all our neighbors were different faiths. I grew up in going to the mosque, going to the temples for celebrations, going to church for specific celebrations. And so really, it's very much core to who I am that we are all part of this great spark of divinity. It's just that we all have different paths to it.
You have been organizing for several years the Intercultural Festival at the Ismaili community. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so I used to be the youth chair for the longest time. I'm still very involved in the community in a different capacity, but I truly felt at some point in my life that music and culture and art could come together to show how we are more united rather than separate. So over the years, including with yourself and with some friends in common, you know, a flamenco guitarist and classical Indian dancers and tabla players, and even just singers from the community, bringing everyone together from such different backgrounds and such different faiths, but realizing that when we come together and put all those differences aside, we can create so much beauty. So it's still very much in my dream to create a virtual Sufi concert. But in the past, we have brought people together. I remember for Kenyans who know famous singers, Nameless, famous Kenyan singer, Nameless. I remember about 12 years ago bringing him on to say, come to the community center and let's pair you up with an Indian singer and put on some mix of Indian and Kenyan clothes and let's see what we can create. And it was amazing. And I think that started many more collaborations in that space. So it's just my way of showing that actually we can be better together and that it is really much a part of us to be accepting of each other's diversities and difference, knowing that we're creating beauty when we're together. And that's very much in line with also what His Highness the Aga Khan, you know, stands for, this idea of pluralism and really understanding each other and understanding each other's cultures and creating a space where we can understand each other, being a route to peace.
You have been working for several years for the development sector that has actually taken a lot of your capacities and skills. And at the same time, you have been able to commit to your wildlife life, to your cultural and also spiritual life. How do you do it?
That's a really great question because at some point I felt like I wasn't balanced in all of these. But I think what has become more important for me is the commitment to myself. Yes, the commitment to the world and to doing good for the world, but also the commitment to myself to say, I need to do this for myself and my own well-being and my own spirit journey. So the time to meditate every day, the time to give back, because I truly believe that when we give, we receive so much more. And it's very much part of my family's tradition, my faith tradition. So giving back time and resources where possible, but also giving back in the work I did for so long. And even the choice to leave my job to be a full-time coach really was to be in the line of thinking that actually I could do so much more on my purpose to serve people who needed the support to become better leaders, to create a better world. Really, that commitment is what has held me throughout. And I think also just this idea that our time here is so short, and so having that balance and enjoying this earth really is upon us to take that. And so that's what keeps me balanced. And also this idea in the last year, particularly with COVID, this idea that our well-being and wellness cannot be understated. So keeping connected to the wildlife, I go camping a lot, also doing the little bit I need to do for my own spirituality, but also my work, all of that in a space of ensuring that I can be as well as I can so that I can serve the world the best way I can.
Tell me, how do you manage to make such a difficult decision as leaving your comfort zone of working in a very prestigious development organization and then become your own boss?
It was not easy. It was not easy. And particularly because I loved the work I did and I loved the people I worked with, but I did feel like I could do and give so much more to the world. And actually last year I got trained as a coach and I thought, okay, in 2 years I'll leave my job and do this. And then one day I woke up and realized, no, I think that I can best serve the world by going into this right now. And I felt that because people needed support as leaders to build their resilience. They needed support for someone just to listen to them, as you know, as a coach, to say, I'm here just to listen. Ultimately, you have all the answers. And literally one day I woke up and I realized I can't be in my job any longer, not because I don't love the people I work with, but because I'm not able to best serve myself and my own well-being, but also not serve others as much as I would like to and create impact in the world. And the reason I say it was a very difficult decision is because I loved my boss at the time, and she and I are good friends still today. I felt extremely loyal, and I felt like I would probably be betraying her if I left, but I needed to tell her. And for the 3 days, I could not find her to tell her that I was going to leave my job. The funniest thing happened. My body was rejecting food. So I could not digest any food. All of it would come up in different ways. I was not well. And then the moment I told her, within an hour, I was perfectly fine again.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking before. You have been highly connected to your inner spiritual being, that for a long time you were not really listening to the message it was sending you. And there was a moment that it was just it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was
Was
literally it. I could not digest being in that space anymore. And so the moment that happened, intuitively, I realized my body was telling me it has to be now. There's no other way for you.
Yeah, talking about that is a very important element on coaching. And I think it was also giving you a lesson that later on you are going to use, and I think in regular basis with professionals in different fields, because it's a very common state that you are working in a job that is engaging, that is also of your taste and pleasure and well paid, but not necessarily is 100% complete at the spiritual level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to say, the moment I started really getting into coaching and coaching people, I have walked away from almost every coaching session I've had with the client thinking to myself, this is exactly where I need to be. This is where my spirit is happiest. And also I've realized that also the way I coach is very intuitive. It's because I'm so aligned now to my purpose that the universe just gives me answers and say, okay, go in this direction or take this client into this visualization. It's not me who makes that up from a textbook. It literally is divine source just saying, here, we're speaking through you. This is where exactly you need to be. And so to find that and know you're exactly where you need to be is amazing. It's so powerful. And every day I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, and I really believe, Reshma, because I know you, through your years of experience and practices of so many different fields, you were already set, to start this work in a very fluent way. Do you
Absolutely.
feel that you are at that moment right now?
Absolutely. 100%, 100%. I needed to get the training and the accreditation and everything that was needed so I could have legitimacy, but completely and it wasn't just the work experience. It wasn't just all the work that happened, that definitely helped me become a better facilitator for diversity, inclusion, women's rights, women's leadership particularly. But also all the life experiences now when I reflect back, and also when I work with clients, and also when I went through my own coaching journey with a coach for a few years, all those have brought me to this space. Because of all those experiences, I'm able to come to this space with humility, with life experience, with life story, and to step into that space to say, I'm just here to support you. And many times I know what it feels like to be in that space, or I know what it will feel like to accomplish something because I've been in that space in a different way.
What is the name of your company?
Kenzo Consulting. I sometimes say Kenzo, but it's actually Kenzo Consulting.
What is Kenzo? What is the meaning of the name?
So when I was looking for a name, I needed to have something that felt really authentic and truly me. And I spoke to friends around the world, including some very close friends from various indigenous communities, particularly a Native American community in the States. And I was trying to express two things. The first was the fact that even in a coaching relationship, or when we're facilitating, or when we're a team, we're all humans. Beyond how we look and our appearance and where we come from and what we sound like, we are all humans. And there's something about the very deep human connection that is similar to the idea of Ubuntu. I am because you are, I am because we are, that I wanted to express that. So the idea of K apostrophe E is from the Navajo culture and really speaks to our human connection and the five-fingeredness of being human, that, we really are connected through our senses, through our beings. And as a community, we're really in the space of mutual trust, respect, and support. And even as a coach and a client. So that was the first bit. And then the Enso was simply the infinity and the infinite possibilities that are represented by the Japanese circle, the Zen circle, of just a single brush stroke. That's not a complete, fully closed circle, because the openness in that unclosed circle allows for so many possibilities and really brings us back to the idea of our mindfulness and our being, and just being in that space of infinite possibility. Our lives can be whatever we want them to be. So those are the two concepts, the human connection and human centeredness, in addition to the infinite possibilities, and really also connecting very much to the spiritual path of being connected to the earth and also to Zen Buddhism. So those two together were perfect. I had a few other options and I asked friends, and everyone said that felt most authentically like me, and that's also how I felt. And the colors, I'm actually wearing a necklace that is the colors of Kenzo. And funnily enough, the painting behind me is the color. That was not deliberate. I do have a painting that I picked up, that deliberately picked up because it represented the colors, but it's teal and gold. And just again, speaking to the gold is really the golden light of our beings, and the golden light of graciousness and possibility. And the teal just also felt quite divine. And it's also connected to my own faith strand as well. And so those were the very deliberate colors I chose. And this necklace was made by a friend for me. When I told her, this is what my company represents, these are the colors I'm going to choose, she made a set of necklaces that could be worn in 5 ways, speaking to the five-fingeredness of human connection.
Wonderful. So everything is tuned, not only your mindset and your physical being and your surroundings and your professional work. Is that what most of your clients are trying to achieve?
Yes. Yes, I think maybe not in that way necessarily, but most of my clients are trying to achieve. Sometimes it'll be as simple as I want to be a better leader, or I need a better balance in my life. But ultimately, what it all comes down to is when we have really reckoned with our voices within, with what our true purpose is, with the voices that have guided us and shaped us, or perhaps even harmed us as children and as a youth. And we're able to reckon with those and overcome those, but also be liberated by the fact that we do have a purpose. We just need to go within ourselves. We are aligned and we become that circle of infinite possibilities of being whatever we want to be, of feeling connected to another, but also of feeling connected to ourselves and empowered to do things for ourselves. And most of my clients, I don't discriminate against men, but most of my clients have organically ended up being women. And most of them, a few sessions in, have said, okay, my true purpose is to be most authentic me and well and able to serve the world and be a better leader, but also be better to myself and take care of myself, because then I can show up for the world differently.
How do you see women, and how do you see yourself now that your life is in a completely different point? Because it's this change, it's completely, it's a new Reshma. So what,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
how is this feeling?
There's some days I wake up and it almost feels unbelievable to be living this life. And to be in a space where everything I've dreamed of, I've done vision boards and gratitude journals for over 10 years. And everything I've written and dreamed of coming true, but also the ability to say, yes, there are days when I need to get a lot of work done, but I'm not stressed out going to work, doing it for someone else. I'm going in because I'm supporting somebody else, which is very different. And when I think about that as a woman and think about other women also, and the women I work with, they all inspire me so much. But also what I've realized, and I'm sure this is true for men, but you definitely see it with women. Women are more resilient. We're more resilient than we think we are. And when we're able to tap into that source, that divinity, that power within, there's nothing that can stop us. And that's also how I feel for myself, that literally, people have asked me, you were crazy to leave a full-time job with career safety in the middle of a global pandemic where economies of the world are struggling. But the moment you tap into that power and truly believe that there is a path for you and that you're going to be okay and that there is a way out, nothing can stop you.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's about you, and it's about your feelings and your emotions. And this is why authenticity is a key element in your coaching. That's the feeling I have, because now you are authentic. Before, everything was determined on your job, and it was playing a big role on your personality as well. Do you feel it that way?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I have to say, I mean, there were times I've had a coach for years, and there were times when I thought I was not good enough to do the work even I did in my job. Or maybe a few years ago, I would have thought I'm not good enough to even jump into this and do this myself. But completely, authenticity is a core value for me, but it's also a core word I say a lot, that I can truly only serve somebody else if I'm authentic and I'm truly who I am and I'm showing up as who I am, with all the multifaceted parts of me, as colorful as they may be, is the best way I can serve another individual. So completely, it's not determined by someone else's agendas or somebody else's mission or vision, but it really is me just being the best I can be in the world by being the best I can be for myself. So it's almost like a circle, like take care of yourself, be the best you can be for yourself. You will be strong and healthy to then be better to support someone else. And in turn, they will go and do whatever they need to do to make the world a better place. I truly believe when we're most authentically in our space of good and we are in our space where we truly are aligned, there is no way we will create harm in this world because we're literally in our most divine connected source space.
Do you feel that the compassion in yourself is stronger and higher now?
To myself, absolutely. I've always been a very compassionate person, and people have told me sometimes that I've often heard you're too nice, or you give everything to everyone, and I'm not going to change that. But what has changed is the ability to set boundaries for myself as well,
Mhm.
and to be more compassionate to myself. And that has meant that even since I left my job, because I'm more compassionate, I am doing yoga every day. I'm taking care of my health better. I've been fit in the past, but this is probably the most well and healthy I've ever been in my life.
Can you describe holistic now that you are living that type of life? How do you describe it?
Yeah, for me, holistic is thinking about it's, I see myself in a circle every day, and the circle starts with the most the most basic is the divinity within me. Ultimately, this, I'll be gone, this body will be gone, but that divinity, that spark, whatever religion or faith you come from, that spark will continue in another way. Taking care of that spark and making sure that spark feels connected to the greater universe. That's the first. And then second to that is that spark only has time to do that when that spark is well. And so that holisticness around my well-being, my health, what I'm choosing to eat, what I'm choosing to do for exercise, how I'm choosing to take care of myself, my mental health and physical health, really strengthens the ability to say, I have time to also just meditate. And then wider around that is just it's almost like the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's law of hierarchy of needs, my hierarchy is really my source, the divinity, then my physical and mental well-being, and surrounding and supporting that is the need to make money to put food on the table, but also to make a difference in the world. So it's not just about me taking for myself, but to make a difference in the world. And that could be either through the clients I work with, or in using whatever I can make, taking care of my needs and giving back in some way as well to community and to wildlife and to the world.
You have been supporting Faraya Cancer Support Trust in the past. What can you tell us about that experience? And why did you decided to be part of it?
So my mom was diagnosed with cancer in June 2010. She had ovarian cancer, and the doctors had told me at the time that she's not going to survive past 6 months. To the day when she was diagnosed, she passed on 6 months later. And at that time, I only heard about Faraja towards the end of when she was really ill and too ill to be able to go to a space like Faraja. And I think it had also not been too long since it was founded. And, my thinking was, I wish she had had a space. I wish I had known. I wish that there were more spaces like this, or that we could do more, particularly for cancer survivors or families of cancer survivors who are going through massive trauma. And I was in that space to see my mom, who was, who was both my parents for so many years since my father died, to both me and my sister, to really be able to have a support system, but a system where you could go and really look at holistic healing rather than just only the chemotherapy or just the radiology. And Shaira, the founder, is such an inspiration because that's exactly what she's done. The whole linking holistic health and wellness to how we are and how we see ourselves, and how also cancer and other diseases affect us. And that was very instrumental to me also thinking through the fact that dis-ease and illness most of the time is really connected to our emotional well-being and our inner traumas. And so that's, over the years, I've done a lot of research and really been very connected to, I need to be well to make sure that I don't get sick because there's something emotional. And so I find Faraja an amazing space. Over the years, I did some fundraisers for them as well as some other wildlife trusts. I definitely need to do more. We used to do talks at the place I used to work with. We used to bring in Faraja to do talks. And I think it's such a great space of support, but also a space that challenges us to look back at what it means to be well. And wellness is holistic. And so that's why I've been really, really connected to Faraja.
Yeah, now we're almost reaching the 30 minutes conversation with you. And we are at the point when we discuss the topic of death, because death can be interpreted in different ways. Like you say, death can be physical, but death can be also be living it in this life with your physical body. What can you tell us about that?
So it's interesting. I think some people really can't talk about death either because it's been too traumatic. And for me, I think when both my parents passed, the physical death, the physical loss, or the physical transition actually made me a stronger person. But also, in all instances of losing my loved ones, it's made it very clear to me that we are here for such a short time. And so, do what you can, be good to the world. I was listening to something the other day that said, leave your soul print. do whatever you can to make this world a better place. But ultimately we will go, but our souls will continue in some way, shape, or form. I think the other death is the death of the death of the ego, the death of this limiting belief that we can't do things. And I've seen that now when I reflect back, I think in a way, there has been a death of versions of me that thought that they could not do things, that the world was out to only get them, that the world was only going to make it hard for them, or that they were always going to struggle. And so it's those two things. And the thing is, once you sort of lose or allow that death of that limited person who thinks that they can't achieve, or who feels like they don't deserve happiness or deserve joy, you become closer to the idea that actually I am here ultimately on a life journey that will end at some point. And so I'm just a visitor here. And so let me do my best. And the best also means taking care of myself and dancing and playing and growing my own food and whatever it takes. And it's so beautiful to be in that space.
Reshma, can you give us a final message to society and the youth that can actually validate life?
Absolutely. I think the message would be, just like the earth is an ecosystem, take care of your ecosystem, your inner being, your outer being, and make choices today, not only for yourself and your well-being, but for the earth, because the earth needs us. And if you make those choices today to make this earth a better place, or to do whatever you need to do for the environment, it will also make you more well. And we all need to, at this point in humanity, step up and make those choices. Whatever that choice is for you, however little it is, make that choice for Mother Earth so that she can nurture you back and make you well.
Reshma, thank you very much for promoting unity and diversity, for being so kind, for your love for humanity and the Mother Earth and everything that is inside Mother Earth. And please keep shining and brightening the life of so many people globally. I love you, you know that. Okay.
I love you too. I have
Yes.
so much love for you, Annie. And I can't wait to see you again.
The same. Lots of blessings, and please keep shining. Okay. Hasta la
Lots of
vista,
love.
Reshma. Ciao.
Gracias. Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.